it's Kenzy Knoxx and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we'll be painting how to paint a winter landscape with this cabin in the woods. So to begin off with, we'll need some titanium white, some sap green, some lemon yellow, some light blue violet, some mauve pale, some phthalo blue. And to begin off with, we'll spritz down our canvas, get some water on there to let our paint glide a little bit easier. And then we'll start with our 1-inch mop brush. Dipping into some titanium white, some lemon yellow, we're going to start painting in our sky. So you can just see there, I've just grabbed a little bit of lemon yellow, not much at all. And we're just going to start about in the center of our sky area to show our sunset area. Naturally, our next color is orange, which at this point, I just realized I didn't add orange to our palette. So add some orange, cadmium orange hue to your palette. And then we're going to pick up some orange and mix that in with our titanium white and the yellow that's already on our mop brush. And we're going to go ahead and add in our orange layer to our sunset. We're then going to pick up our light blue violet, add that to that orangey shade, which should come out to a nice pinky shade, strangely. I don't know why I find this so strange, but I find this strange, that orange and light blue violet make a pinky shade. But anyways, once you achieve that pinky shade using titanium white, orange, and light blue violet, we're going to go ahead and add that to our sunset. So paint that in. It should be a little bit of a thin layer. We're going to add our phthalo blue and our phthalo blue to the sky afterwards. So once you're done with that, rinse out your brush. And then we're going to begin picking up our phthalo blue, just a little bit of phthalo blue with some titanium white. And maybe even some light blue violet in there. And then we're going to take that and paint that around our entire top part of our canvas so that we have a darker outside layer, creating sort of a vignette effect. So create that thin layer of light blue shade that we created and paint that all around the sky. When I was painting this blue, I realized that the orange wasn't standing out enough. So going back to that light orangey yellow shade, we're going to add a tinge bit more of orange to that to make it stand out brighter and darker at the same time. So add some lemon yellow and some orange to some titanium white, making it more orangey in hue, and then we're going to add that to our sky, right where that orange and yellow hue had been prior. Once you're done with this orange shade, you see here, I've tried to blend it in slightly. You can use a round brush if you'd like to, or a mop brush to blend this in better, but you can just go ahead and rinse out your brush and pick up your size 6 or 8 fan brush, whichever size you feel more comfortable painting in evergreen trees. So dip into our sap green, and then we're going to start creating some evergreen trees. I begin off my evergreen trees by painting a line down the canvas and then tapping in the leaves or the foliage. You can do this whichever way you'd like. You can begin by drawing in all the lines first and then painting your evergreens, or you can paint them in one at a time like I'm doing. Painting them in one at a time allows you to really map out your painting a little bit better, as well as prevent you from painting over other trees or creating trees that aren't necessary. It just allows you to plan out your painting a little bit better, and since I'm painting this as I go, it was just made more sense to paint in each tree one by one. While I'm creating the trees, you'll notice that I'm picking up a lot of paint during this process while I tap in the foliage. It's extremely important that you have enough paint on your brush, or else your branches on the end of the tree will look all frayed and look weird, and you won't get the shape of the tree that you're looking for. Continue creating these trees all the way across the canvas, and I realized I went in like a downward direction and then went back up after the sunset. That's because I really wanted the sunset to show through. You can create your trees in any shape or form that you like, any height, any width, whatever you feel comfortable with. You can make them more skinny, you can make them wider, you can make them taller, shorter, whatever you'd like. We're going to create several layers of trees, so there'll be different shades and colors of trees, just a couple of them, and then the house will be sitting semi in the middle, so don't worry too much about perfection here. That's not where it's needed. We'll need the more detailed work with the house. At this point, I realized I wanted to create the look of some trees in the background, so I added some sap green and some titanium white together just to lighten up the shade a bit, and I chose several trees which I decided to shove into the background so that they weren't overlapping so much, and so just lighten a few of the trees. Taking some more of that lighter shade of green, we're just going to lighten up these trees before adding in some darker trees. I decided to add some extra trees in here, so taking that lighter shade of green, just throw in some extra trees to create a more distant look. To make it look like there's trees in the very far background and trees more in the midground, rather than all the same distance away. This creates a sense of depth and perception. I decided to add another tree to the far left side as well as I did to the far right, just to make sure it looked like the forest didn't just end at that one point, that it continued over. And at this point I added some lamp black. You can add Mars black or any shade of black that you have. I only had lamp black at this moment, which is a very pigmented black, so be careful when using this. But take your sap green and some lamp black, and we're going to create a very dark shade of green. And we're going to create some trees in the more closer midground area. And these should be darker as they come closer towards us, if that makes sense. I basically just created a row of trees just in the midground that followed that same direction of the trees in the background. They slope down and then slope back up. When I was done adding in these trees, I decided to make the trees in the middle just a little bit taller, because they should just be a little bit taller the closer they come towards us. But you can make them any height or shape that you want, like I said previously. You can rinse off your brush and then grab your size 8 filbert brush. And we're going to take some titanium white and light blue violet and mix that together to come up with a shade for the snow in the midground. So just paint this in to make it look like your trees are sitting in the snow and they're not just hovering above it. And once you've positioned your trees into the snow, we're going to go ahead and cover in most of the foreground, or if not all the foreground, with our light blue, violet, and titanium white. I decided to stick with the size 8 filbert brush because it created different streaks within the snow, creating different shadows and different highlights in different areas. You can choose to use a larger paintbrush if you'd like, but I decided to stick with this brush just because of the various tones and highlights that you create using this brush. And once you're done painting in this entire area with that light blue, violet, and titanium white, we're going to go ahead and rinse off that brush and grab our size 6 flat brush, as well as add some burnt umber to our palette. So go ahead and add that to your palette before moving on to the next step. So add some paint to the tip of your brush, just make sure it's on the tip of your bristles, because we're going to be sketching in or painting in our house, but we're just going to be mapping it out. So paint in a line about 3/4 of the way, or 2/3 of the way over from the canvas, and then paint another line over right about here. And that'll be the side of our house. And we're just going to be basically painting in simple shapes like squares and triangles and lines. So just follow me along as I paint each step by step. If your paint is still wet, this will be extremely difficult to do, so I highly suggest using a hair dryer or just letting your paint dry before continuing on painting in the house. As you can see, I picked up some green in the paint here, making it a darker shade of brown, but that's okay. You can always go over it. Acrylics are quite forgiving in that it lets you paint over it once it's dried, and you can cover it very easily, any mistake that you'll make. So go ahead and continue on with the lines. And like I said, I highly suggest or highly recommend drying off your painting before continuing on, which is probably something I should have done. Once I had the basic shape of the house outlined that I liked, I decided to add a chimney to the side of the house, or the part of the house that is facing front towards us. So go ahead and follow me as I add this chimney in. At this point I realized the chimney is a little too wide, so I wanted it a little bit more narrow so it could fit some windows in on the sides of the chimney. So I decided just to make this narrow, and this is very easy to fix. We'll be painting in the house a light brown color or tan color, so we can just go right over any markings that we messed up on. Go ahead and add some raw umber to your palette. We're going to be using this to create the tan shade of the house. So taking our same flat brush, we're going to go ahead and mix up some raw umber with some titanium white to create a nice little tan shade, and then we're going to use this to paint in all the siding of the house. Going over the tree area, you can immediately see that the background is not dry. I really should have dried off my canvas. I really wish I had, because I needed to paint this over several layers, several times before it actually took the correct shade of tan. But if you don't like I do, it's fine. Just dry it off and paint it over again, or you can wait like I did and then paint it over again. As you can see, I'm quite stubborn and just avoided the green areas until it was dry. But once you're done with painting in the house, we're going to go ahead and take our phthalo blue with some light blue violet and some titanium white to create our highlights or our lowlights in the snow area. So go ahead and mix those up and then begin tapping in some snow onto your trees. To highlight the trees in the background, we're going to use a different color. So taking some white, some light blue violet, and a little bit of orange, we're going to create a light pink color. And this will be the snow reflecting from the sunlight, or the sunset, I'm sorry. So mix up this color until you get that light shade of pink that we like and make it very light in color. And then we're just going to tap it into the background of our trees, or the background with our trees. And once you're happy with your trees, you can go ahead and rinse off your brush and grab your size 6 flat brush and go back to filling in the house with that light tan shade. So pick up some white and some raw umber and create that tan shade and go over the areas that were wet and repaint those in. Since the trees are so thick in color, it's sometimes hard to, even with a hairdryer, to dry them off, so you might just have to wait it out. Taking that same tan color, once I was done painting the house, I decided to highlight the chimney just a little bit, so I just highlighted it with that light tan color. But we'll be filling in the chimney with a different color later on. Taking some burnt umber with some white, some titanium white, we're going to go ahead and fill in the front facing part of our chimney. And once you're done filling in your chimney, you can go ahead and rinse off your brush and put that aside. And pick up your size 2 flat brush. That's what I have here. And then we're going to go ahead and get that wet, tap off the drips, and then dip into our burnt umber. And then we're going to start filling in some of the bricks of the chimney. Just randomly put in some dots and dabs here and there among the chimney bricks. Once you're happy with the dark little dabs and taps, we're going to go ahead with the lighter shade of that burnt umber. So add some more white to that burnt umber, and then we're going to go in with some taps and dabs with this lighter shade. Adding some more white to that color of burnt umber, we're going to create even a lighter shade and then go back in with some taps and dabs to create some lighter bricks. Fortunately for us, this house is far enough away that we will not see this detail very up close, so it doesn't need to be perfect. They don't need to line up perfectly. We're going to go back in with some lines, some dark lines, so that it separates the bricks, so you don't have to make sure that they're all perfectly lined up or staggered. You can just paint them in as taps and dabs, just as we're doing. Then go ahead and rinse off your brush and pick up some titanium white, and we're going to continue in with these taps and dabs just randomly along the chimney. And don't forget about the highlighted side of our chimney where the window is going to be. We're just going to throw in some light bricks over on this side. Going in with back with that dark brown shade, we're just going to add some more bricks in real quickly. And then once you're happy with your bricks, you can rinse off your brush and put that aside and let this paint dry. So then we're going to go back to our size 6 flat brush and pick up some raw umber with some titanium white and make that light tan shade of the house. And we're just going to recoat the house with this color tan. Hopefully at this point your painting has really dried or thoroughly dried and you won't be dragging any more green pigment through that tan shade of paint. As you're repainting in your house, don't worry about those brown lines that we previously created. You can go right on over those. I tried to avoid going over them, just trying to give it a go. But at the end, I think I ended up painting over them entirely. And then I went back in and repainted them afterwards. Once you're done painting in your house, go ahead and rinse off your brush thoroughly. And then we're going to pick up some light blue violet and some titanium white to create the color of the snow on the rooftop. And so most of the rooftop is going to be shaded. We're going to paint in this side of the house, which is actually going to be darker than the left portion of the rooftop. Just keep that in mind when you're mixing up your colors. So just paint in the rooftop over here, and then we'll mix in some more light blue violet to create the other shade of the rooftop. So since the left side of our rooftop is going to be lighter in shade, we're going to add some light blue violet and some white with extra titanium white this time, and to make it lighter in color and tone, and then paint that on in. And once you're done painting in your rooftop, go ahead and thoroughly rinse out your brush and put that aside, and we're going to move on to the next step. So grabbing our 00 round brush, you can grab a liner brush or a small round brush, and we're going to dip into our burnt umber. And you can see I'm trying to get it onto the tip of the brush, so wiggle that around with some water on it. You need it to be watered down or else you will get a thick blotchy line, which is not what we're going for, but we're going to go ahead and add those lines back into the house. And once you're done with lining your house, we can go on to the chimney. So use that same round brush, and we're going to dip into our raw umber this time, the darker raw umber, the darker brown color. And we're just going to create some lines here and there. They don't have to be every single row of brick, just every few rows, I would say. Remember, this is going to be so far away that we're not going to be able to see the detail, but we want to give indications that there are lines between the brickwork. Continue adding in those lines until you're satisfied with the amount of detail work that you've done. And once you're done with your amount of detail that you want, you can go ahead and rinse off that brush. And then we're going to dip into our burnt umber again. And we're going to add a little awning or a little section to the house that I decided to add in last minute. I just didn't think I was going to add this in until I felt like I wanted to do it. So I just added this little easeway that's going to be an extra set of windows or an extra panel to the house. I just thought it was fitting, so I decided to add it in. And we can also add the lines to the house, the detail lining that we previously painted over. Make sure the lines that you draw in are parallel to the other lines of the house, such as this area. Make sure that they go upwards or downwards or straight, depending on which side of the house that you're working on. And if you do happen to mess up, like I just realized my lines didn't match up right here, remember that acrylics are forgiving and you can paint over any mistake that you've created. So just paint in the correct line, or you can paint over it and then create the correct line, whichever way you would feel comfortable with. Once you're done with the lines of the house, go ahead and rinse off your brush and grab your little flat brush. And we're going to add some shadows to the house using that burnt umber and white color. Just make it a raw umber, depending on whichever shade you want to create. And we're just going to add some shadows into the household area. Make sure you focus under the rooftop and towards the sides of the house. And at this point, you can also fix any mistakes that you've created very simply by painting over any lines of error. Once you fixed any mistakes to the house or shadowing that you'd create, we're going to go back to creating the lines of the house to finish it off. So framing in the doorway is what I'm going to do right here. And once you're done with fixing any areas that you need to fix, go ahead and mix up that shade of white and brown that we created for the house using our size 6 flat brush and paint in that extra section that we created. Once you're done with that, you can go ahead and rinse off your paintbrush or fix any mistakes you may have made, and then grab your little mop brush that you have. We're going to dip into some titanium white, some light blue violet, and some titanium white, and we're going to create a haze in the background that's going to make our background stand out farther away or make it look farther away than it truly is. So your brush needs to be damp in order for you to do this, so you just need a little bit of water. It should not be dripping off your brush. If it's dripping, it's too much water. At this point, you can see, oops, I picked up some green paint, meaning my underpaint is still wet at this point. This is crazy. So I decided to take my hairdryer after all and dry off my canvas. Once it was dried to the touch, I went back in with my mop brush and created that haze that we needed in the background. Once you're done creating that haze or that foggy layer, go ahead and rinse off your brush and grab your size 4 fan brush or a 6 fan brush, whatever fan brush you're comfortable using. And we're going to dip into some sap green and some black. We're going to mix that up to create our darkest shade of the tree. And so we're going to have a tree sitting right next to the house right here. And so paint that in and just tap in the foliage. Once you're done with the first tree, we're going to create a second tree on the other side of the house. That's going to be a little bit taller. And so we're going to start painting this tree in, creating a line first, and then tapping in the foliage. Once you're done painting your tree, rinse off your brush and put that aside and grab your size 0 flat brush or a small flat brush. We're going to take Scarlet Red and add that to our palette, and we're going to load up our brush and paint in our front door. I thought red would be quite fitting with this festive painting. But once you're done, rinse off your brush and grab your size 6 flat brush and grab some light blue violet and some titanium white. Mix that up and we're going to repaint our rooftop. Remember that the left side of our rooftop is brighter than the right side. Once you're done with the rooftop, go ahead and rinse off your brush, and then we're going to dip into our raw umber and some titanium white, and we're going to just paint in some of our household again. Once you're done filling in any section of the house that needs extra paint, go ahead and rinse off your brush. Grab some luminous yellow, add that to your palette, and grab some titanium white and mix in that luminous yellow. And we're going to start painting in some windows and creating some light in this place. So start with the windows over here. We'll start with the one window here, and then we'll add some extra windows over here. Continue adding windows until you're satisfied with the amount of windows that you've created on your house. You can add them anywhere, on top, on bottom, in the middle. You do not have to follow the window pattern that I'm following or I'm painting in. It's up to you. Once you've added one layer of this luminous yellow and white, go ahead over with a second layer of luminous yellow and white over the windows to make it really stand out brightly. You might even need a third layer, to be honest with you. Once you're done with the windows, rinse out your brush, grab your 00 round brush or a liner brush, dip into your burnt umber, and we're going to create some lines on this little area that we just added. Then we're going to go ahead and rinse off that brush, grab our size 4 flat brush, and we're going to grab that luminous yellow and titanium white mixture and paint in an extra window right here. And once you're done with the windows, we're going to add some light to the snow below the windows now. We're also going to take some of that luminous yellow and white mixture and add some light to the side of the chimney next to the window. Next, we're just going to touch up our rooftop with that light blue violet and titanium white color. Just get rid of that brown line that's up there, that division line, because obviously that'd be covered by snow. And go over any other brown lines that you have on the house when we first painted it in, making sure that the snow is covering the rooftop completely. And before we forget, make sure you add that light blue violet to the left side of the rooftop and also to the right side, which I completely forgot, to that extra area we just added. We'll be adding that in a little bit later though. If you notice, this color blue is darker than the previous shades of blue that we used, and that's because it's a shadow layer. So this adds a little bit of a 3D effect to our house, making it less two-dimensional than it is. And then once you're done with that, you can go ahead and rinse off your brush and grab your size 4 fan brush. And we're going to tap into our sap green, and we're going to add some highlights to our trees. Just some minor highlights, but they'll be nice and subtle, and we'll just know that they're there. And once we're done with the tree on the left, we'll move to the tree on the right. So go ahead and add those highlights in as well. And when you're done with the tree, you can go ahead and rinse off your brush and put that aside. And we're going to add some cobalt blue to our palette. So add that to your palette. Grab your size 6 grab your size 6 filbert brush. I'm sorry about that. And load it up with some cobalt blue. And we're just going to add in a shadow underneath the tree over here. And then we're also going to add a shadow to the tree over here as well. Keeping in mind where the light is coming from. So it's coming from the house. And see that window, it's going to create a longer shadow on this tree than the other tree. However, that other tree is still going to have a shadow behind it or on the side of it, so make sure you paint that in as well. Go ahead and rinse off your brush and then tap in some light blue violet underneath the house to create the house's shadow. Remember that the light is coming from behind the house, and so the house is all going to be shadowed in. Once you're done with the main shadows around the base of the house, make sure that you carry those shadows away from the house as well, avoiding the lighted areas. And once you're done with the shadows, we're going to go ahead and create just a little pathway. Don't create this so much so that you can't change it. This is just to give me an idea because I wasn't sure what I was going to do in front of the house yet. So just paint in some curved lines. I believe I bring the pathway out to the left at the end, so you can skip that step if you'd like to. But grab your number 2 00 round brush or a small liner brush, and we're going to dip into some black. And we're going to go ahead and paint in some of the window trim. So some lines that are going down and some lines that are going to the side. And you can add as many lines as or as little lines as you'd like. Each window can remain consistent, or you can even switch it up a bit. So bigger windows could have more vertical lines or less vertical lines, or more horizontal lines or less horizontal lines. It's really up to you and what you feel like painting in. And it's easier if you steady your pinky on the canvas to make these lines straight, and everybody messes up once in a while, so you can always fix that. Don't worry about that. Just take your time. Sometimes it's easier just to draw the lines in quickly. Sometimes I find that's easier, but sometimes I find it easier to be slow too. It really depends on the day, I guess, or how I'm feeling. Sometimes my hands don't feel that steady. Sometimes you get a little nervous and your hand wobbles. It's really different every single day. So it just depends on how you feel. But I'm going to go ahead and speed up this video so that you just don't have to watch me paint in some window lines. Once you're done with the larger windows, don't forget about the windows around the door frame too. And once you're satisfied with your windows, don't forget about a little bit of a doorknob that we're going to paint in. I'm just going to do a little circular thing and then a little hook down here, and that should be my doorknob. Grabbing my size 6 flat brush, I'm going to go ahead and start creating a fence that I decided to put in there. So using burnt umber, I'm just going to paint in some stakes in the ground. They could be straight, they can be crooked, they can be short, they can be tall. Just use your imagination and paint these in, and we're going to have these vertical lines going all the way across. You can have them spaced out further, you can have them spaced out closer together, whatever you'd like. And then we're going to have some horizontal bars coming across those. So we'll be doing that after that dries a little bit. But grab your fan brush, grab some light blue violet for some snow on the trees, and you can use any size fan brush you're comfortable with. Sometimes I go with a smaller fan brush, sometimes I go with the larger one. I believe I'm using a size 4 for this process, but we're just going to use this just to highlight some snow or add some midtones, and then we'll go in with some highlights on top of it. Once we're done with the midtones, we can go ahead and add white to that light blue violet color, and then we'll take that mixture and add some highlights to the trees. Make sure that when you're doing this, you're not covering all of the midtones that we've added. You want to maybe go over some of them, but you can also create some highlights alone by themselves. You can go on top of each of them mid-toned areas. It's really up to you. Just make sure that those midtones still shine through. They add a nice shadow to the snow. And once you're done with that, go ahead and rinse off that brush and put it aside. And then we're going to switch brushes. We're going to go to our size 6 flat brush. And we're going to use this brush to patch up our fence or to complete our fence area. Be careful of the snow that you just painted in. You might be carrying it along the fence so you can dry off your canvas if you'd prefer. But I noticed that the paint was semi-transparent and we don't want a transparent fence. So I'm going to go over each of these fence posts with a layer of burnt umber. And now we're going to add our horizontal boards to our fence, keeping in mind that we want an opening in the fence where we'll be walking through, where the gate would be. You can add a gate to this painting if you'd like. I did not because I'm not familiar with how to paint gates just yet, but eventually I will be. But we're going to go ahead and grab our light blue violet and add some shadows to these fence posts. So just add them straight behind it as the light is coming from the house and from behind the trees. And don't forget about the horizontal posts as well, or the horizontal boards. Remember, those need shadows as well. Continuing on with our light blue violet, we're going to add now the shadow snow to our post. So go ahead and add those on top of your post if your paint is dry. If it's not and you're carrying some brown paint, just wait a minute until your paint dries and then come back to it. So in this case, I decided to come back to it because I was carrying paint over, and I decided to carry this pathway from the house to the left of the canvas, and creating that path, getting larger as it comes towards us and narrower as it gets far away from us. And make it so it kind of dips down, so it's kind of like a swooping layer or a swooping effect. And once we're done with the path, we're going to go in with the light blue violet and titanium white, a lot of titanium white in this mixture to add a highlight to the mounds of snow that are around the pathway. And then we'll add another shadow behind the mounds of snow to make sure that they really stick out, because the mounds are going over the path and they're higher than the regular level of snow that's on the ground, the surrounding areas. Going back to the fence, hopefully it's dry by now. We're going to add our light blue violet to our fence, and then we'll cover it in titanium white. Once you're done with the fence, go ahead and rinse out that brush. Grab your size 2 filbert brush, and we're going to go ahead and grab some light blue violet, some orange, and some titanium white to make a light pinky shade that we're going to highlight our snow with. And this is a reflection of the sky, and that's why we're getting this shadow or this color of snow on top of the rooftop. And once you're done highlighting that section of the house, we're going to go ahead and add a shadow to this little area of the house that's sticking out from the house. We're also going to take that cobalt blue and go around the bottom edges of the snow around the rooftop. Then taking some titanium white and some light blue violet, making a very light highlight shade, we're just going to go around the top of the house in some areas and highlight those areas that the sun is really touching or highlighting. Once you're done with that, go ahead and rinse off that brush, and we're going to add some light green permanent, some lime green, as well as some brilliant yellow green. And we're going to add those to our palette, and then grab our size 1 flat brush, which is a bristle brush. It's like it's not really flat, but it's like got a textured, or its bristles are all spread out, so you can tap the brush and it'll create these awesome branches. But if you don't have this, you can use a fan brush. And we're just going to add some highlights to the tree where the house light is hitting it. And we're going to start with the darkest color green and then keep adding in highlights with each lighter shade of green on top of those darker shades. Make sure that you allow each shade of green to really show through, so you don't want to cover all of the green that you put down on your canvas. You want to kind of go around it or outside it, so you don't have to add that much of a highlight, just a little bit touch of a highlight. And each lighter color should be less of a highlight than the previous highlight. Continue highlighting the tree until you're satisfied with the amount of highlights. You can go all the way up to the top of the tree if you'd like, because remember that the light is coming from behind the trees as well, so it's not just from the house. You have multiple sources of light, so there can be different areas of highlight. And once you're done with your green highlights, we're going to go ahead and tap into some luminous yellow and titanium white. And we're just going to add some highlights to the snowy areas just from the reflection of the house. So these are directly from the house lights, not from the sunlight or the sunset. So make sure you don't go too high with these highlights. And as you wrap up these final details, congratulations, you finished this painting. And I just want to say thank you so much for watching my YouTube tutorial, and I hope you really enjoyed it. I know I did. Please remember to like this video and to subscribe to my YouTube channel for upcoming video releases. So until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Okay, bye!